for 24-25. I'm very happy that in India we can produce such high quality reports which can become discussion points. So many congratulations, Nageshji. This is a very good effort, and I was speaking to some of members of your team. I believe it's been a 2-year effort. So something very nice has been produced. I want to welcome Dr. Surjit Ballaji also, and Rupaji, and Ashwini Mahajanji, who will be discussing your report, and some members of our strategy community. Air Marshal Rajesh Kumar ji is here, General Sani, and Dr. J.R. Bhatt, Sujit Saxena, some of our scholars here have also joined us. So this is, I think, as you rightly observe in the report, that for India to become VIF-ISID Bharat, we have to have, and also a growth which generates jobs. And their manufacturing and industrial development will have to play a huge role. Although I noticed that there is some debate about whether services sector or manufacturing sector, etc. Many people, but you have answered that. Maybe we'll come to that. But it, I think, is common sense that manufacturing, which is labor intensive and which is so important for all of us, and at all levels, high tech to low tech, and certainly labor intensive industries, traditional industry, we have to pay a hell of a lot of things. And I think it was probably in your forward by Mr. Mishra ji that we lost this focus after 1991 when we opened up and we outsourced everything. And America is also discovering that everything has been outsourced to China. So we have to bring manufacturing back into India. And I was reading one speech by Hardeep Puri in 23. So data may have changed, but he said that manufacturing sector comprised 17% of the nation's GDP and employed 27 million workers. This is nothing. And China has, I think, now 28, 29%. It used to be 40%, I think, at one point of time. So manufacturing may, and I think we had our industrial policy even Manmohan Singh's time that we wanted to reach somewhere 25%.
1991 was the last time we had an industrial.
25% का बोला था. There was 25. So anyhow, so you say that probably you are sanguine and you feel that we might reach higher levels. I don't know what percentage is by 2030. So that's your conclusion of the report. So this report, as I saw it, it takes a deep dive into the prospects of India becoming a manufacturing hub, and it makes some lots of recommendations. And so these are, I think, very good recommendations. And essentially, you're saying that policy reform is going to be critical to India's industrial growth. And you have a number of recommendations. And you feel that there should be a industrial strategy, a new industrial strategy for making India a manufacturing hub. And a new industrial policy should include such ambitious targets as doubling the share of India's share in global manufacturing, identifying specific sectors for global leadership, incentivizing MSMEs and startups, leveraging the MNCs, strengthening innovation, maintaining competitive exchange rate, developing corporate bond market, improving industrial infrastructure, logistics, cross-border connectivity, trade facilitation, skill ecosystem, managing the demand side, concluding multilateral trade negotiations, and setting up high-powered institutional architecture for coordination. So these are some of the suggestions you have made in the report. Now, of course, you also noted the external environment, I think, which is going to play a very big role in India's manufacturing capabilities. Now we see that US-China trade war is really becoming worse by the day, and this could lead to a lot of diversion of trade. And China, as you know, has excess manufacturing capacity, So whether there is a risk of China dumping its goods on the Indian market and damaging the Indian manufacturing, that is, I think, something that probably needs to be looked at. So your report comes at a time of Trump's turbulence, Trump tariff turbulence, and which has damaged the rule-based international trading and unleashed unprecedented trade and technology wars. So how will that impact India? I think that's something that we could perhaps discuss. Of course, India is now working out a strategy and trying to do this FTA's kind of arrangements with the US, UK, EU, and some other countries. But in fact, I would also like to put on one, which is a question which we have discussed, whether India and China could also discuss some kind of a trading agreement, because there is a huge trade that India has with China. It's going to probably increase. And though there are massive national security implications, but the fact is that our exports to China don't increase because there are huge non-tariff barriers that they have built, and they are simply not relenting. So if we start a discussion, at least we can hold them on to something that we could probably discuss. Actually, these geopolitical tensions were also noted in the 2025 economic survey. And they had also talked about aggressive industrial and trade policies being followed by many countries, supply chain disruptions, global trade slowdown. So these could also pose challenges to export demand for India's manufactured goods. Today, our share, I think, is about 2.8% global our manufacturing share in global manufacturing, 2.8%, around that, and compared to China's about 29%. So on one hand, I mean, this can be seen as an opportunity. There's a huge thing but a lot of catching up will need to be done. But one area which I want to highlight here, which is very dear to the discussions here, and which is the R&D. You also discussed it in your report. But I think R&D has been India's Achilles heel. At a level less than 1% of GDP, forget it. We simply cannot catch up with the global high-tech manufacturing, let alone taking a leadership role in this. If you look at for instance, the manufacturing strategy of China, I mean, way back, about 10 years ago, they came back with 11 sectors. And on the 11 sectors, they have already now done, they're in lead in 6 or 7 sectors. Out of 30, 40 odd sectors, China is in technologies, high-tech sectors. China is in lead in about 35 or 37. And this happened because there's a massive R&D spend. This, I think, you mentioned somewhere that perhaps our R&D expenditure is about 1.2 or 1.3%.
If really estimated, fully.
But this, you could maybe develop on that, but this is still low. But my impression was we are at 0.7, 0.8%. So how do you unless you are adding the expenditure done by the global capability centers? But वो तो उनका यार, there's not for us. MNCs का वो तो वो ले जाएंगे. So that I think is probably not, maybe it is being spent in India, but it doesn't contribute to Indian R&D. So the problem here is that the private sector contribution to R&D is abysmally low. So unless the private sector wakes up, and 80%, if it's 70, 80%, if it is still government, then government will do what it has to do. And we started looking at some 50, 60 companies. We looked at their R&D expenditures, the big companies, particularly related to defense. किसी का 10 करोड़ है, किसी का 5 करोड़ है, किसी का 7 करोड़ है. कुल मिलाओ तो मेरा ख्याल 100 करोड़ भी नहीं बैठता है, including the big ones. 200 करोड़ हो जाएगा. With that, and these are the companies which are supposed to do these big platforms and so on. So this is, I think, a very big thing, which I think needs to be factored in. Maybe you should do one full report only on the R&D. ये करने की जरूरत है. And one more reason is that R&D, what did the government do? It used to give, I think, some 200% incentive on R&D, etc. वो भी खत्म कर दिया. तो अब कोई भी जो थोड़ा बहुत पहले फज करके 200% दिखाते थे, अब वो भी उन्होंने बंद कर दिया. थोड़ा बहुत वो करते थे. So I think, I don't know how this R&D thing is to be done. And if high-tech may, and another issue is this climate change. The restraints which are being put by climate change on manufacturing, particularly with the onset of the CBAM and other kind of taxes, plus this excess capacity. So this is a very big challenge that Indian manufacturing will have to be. Maybe our products will simply become uncompetitive. Another issue that I think I need to highlight here for this discussion is the issue of energy transition. Energy transition, of course, we have said a lot about हमने solar बना दिया, हमने wind बना दिया, but आप अगर उसकी contribution to electricity generation देखें तो hardly 3-4-5% है. वो solar energy, you know, this is our dependence on fossil fuel, our dependence on coal. अभी इन्होंने एक पेपर किया है कोल की, अगर you should look at his paper also, is going to be there for the next 3-4 decades. So the constraints which the climate change is going to put on Indian manufacturing is going to be massive and cannot be underestimated. So energy transition में क्या करना चाहिए? I think nuclear energy is a very important aspect which we had neglected. I mean, today our nuclear, the share in nuclear energy is hardly what, 3-4%, not even that much, I think. अभी SMR की बात हुई है पिछले बजट में, लेकिन SMR में भी बहुत politics है. It is not that simple. Acha, then I think because we are sitting in this area, which I think probably has only partial mention here, is about the defense and essentially national security, manufacturing and national security. ये राजेश जी बैठे हुए हैं. He has done a lot of, all these people are here. Today, manufacturing capabilities are absolutely vital to India's national security needs, particularly defense. Absolutely. It's a shame that we are still importing all our major defense platforms, whether it is ships, whether it is submarines, whether it is aircraft, and so many other things. So unless there is a civil-military fusion, which what China did successfully, and in a way it's also in America, there is no way that our dependence on imports is going to decrease, and that is creating huge issues.
And the opportunity also.
Of course, this is opportunity. Ultimately, all these challenges we see as an opportunity. But पहले उसको identify तो करना पड़ेगा ना. तो ये एक करना पड़ेगा. This is another task for your institute, and maybe we can also join in. कि how the civil military fusion, particularly in the manufacturing area, that should be brought in. And then now we have these emerging technologies, AI, quantum, semiconductor, etc. कहने के नाम से तो हमने बड़े-बड़े इनिशिएटिव बना दिए हैं. कोई 8,000 करोड़ रुपए का, कोई 10,000 करोड़ रुपए का. आपस में कोई इनकी बातचीत नहीं होती. और डिफेंस को बाहर रखा हुआ है. अरे डिफेंस इज द मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट थिंग भाई. बाकी तो आप जोमेटो जो है वो 10 मिनट की जगह 2 मिनट में दे देगा, बट दैट्स नो अचीवमेंट. So I think that's the strategic and defense industry. And here you have also mentioned that we need to identify some areas. So let us identify some areas. जैसे कि आपने हवाई जहाजों की बात की, फाइटर एयरक्राफ्ट एक्सेट्रा, न्यूक्लियर सबमरीन्स. देखिए ऑकस प्रोग्राम जो चल रहा है यूएसए, ऑस्ट्रेलिया एंड यूके का, वो न्यूक्लियर सबमरीन्स का है. वो 2040 तक इट इज ऑल टोटली मैन्युफैक्चरिंग. So unless we have 8 or 10 big national security missions linked with manufacturing, it will create all the infrastructure that is required. SMEs जो आपने बात की है, वो भी उसमें जुड़ जाएंगे. और jobs will create होंगी, and you will be in the high-tech league. So I think, so what this report told me was, as is the usual case, but I may be wrong, कि इकोनॉमिक्स वाले जो है उनको नेशनल सिक्योरिटी को लेना देना नहीं है, और नेशनल सिक्योरिटी वालों को इकोनॉमिक्स समझ नहीं आती है, और दोनों अपने में खुश रहते हैं. एक वहाँ इनका इंस्टीट्यूट है, एक वहाँ, और गूगल जो है वो वहाँ से नहीं पहुंचा पाता. So thank you very much for coming. I just wanted to make a few points, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta. First of all, let me thank you for thinking of hosting a discussion on this. I think this report, as you said, I mean, has many parts and covers a lot of ground. And more we discuss, more we know what needs to be done. So discussion is very critical, and this is something we wanted to do. So okay, so we are taking all different opportunities of presenting it, discussing it, and a lot of clarity is coming by discussion. The other day we had a discussion in India International Center, chaired by Dr. V.K. Saraswat, the member of Niti Aayog. He said a lot of sensible things which should be in the public domain, and some of people here were also there. Rupa was there. Yeah, so I'm very happy and delighted to be here in Vivekananda International Foundation, and especially because this institution brings together the strategic community and the civil society and other normal industry. So I think I was particularly looking forward to this discussion here at VIF. And so thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. And let me just go over it very quickly, and then I think discussion would be bringing out more issues. So what did we say in this? Basically, one is a lot of emphasis on the manufacturing imperative, which, as you said, is a common sense that we need to develop in manufacturing sector to become a prosperous nation. But somehow the debate has been vitiated by some, I wouldn't say, the motivated people, but maybe underinformed people, and some very learned people, Dr. Raghuram Rajan, for instance, throwing cold water that we have missed manufacturing bus and we can't get it now. This kind of sweeping statement coming from a learned person, does a lot of damage. What is the United States doing? It had abundant manufacturing and is now trying to retrieve it with tariffs. And our people are saying that no, don't try to touch and get into manufacturing. You have missed the bus, forget it. So we devoted a significant part of this report to set the context right, that we haven't missed the bus. We have a lot of opportunities, and without it, we can't get anywhere. So there is this first slide is about this manufacturing imperative. We have made a lot of achievements in Indian economy and social development. We are on the way to become fifth largest economy, already fourth this year. And 500 million people have been lifted out of poverty and all different achievements. But the remaining challenge is that we have 86% of our workforce locked in informal sector. Why it is locked in informal sector? Because we are not creating adequate number of decent jobs. And why we are not generating adequate number of decent jobs is because we have neglected manufacturing. And there is no other sector which creates per unit of investment as many jobs directly and indirectly as manufacturing. So that is and then we have cited and produced some cross-country evidence, cross-states evidence. Any state which did better in manufacturing is higher on per capita levels, poverty reduction. Any country which has focused on manufacturing is higher on per capita incomes and poverty reduction. So the evidence is so clear. And then there are, very famous economists like Nicholas Caldor who have said, and it is my favorite quote, that any country in the world which has achieved prosperity could not do so without manufacturing, except for a few countries like New Zealand, Australia, and Canada, which have huge natural resource bounty, so they didn't have to bother about. But all others had to. So so manufacturing is going to be very critical for our the developed country vision. That is one conclusion which we. But as you said, Dr. Gupta, external context for manufacturing had changed since the times when China was trying to industrialize. That time world trade was growing at the average rate of 15 to 20%. World trade and world investment both were growing at that kind of rate. They have come down crumbling after the global financial crisis. And so that is a challenge. The other is the rise of protectionism as a part of rise of industrial policy around the world. So the new Washington Consensus, you remember Washington Consensus? It was a term used to describe globalization, liberalization, and privatization. Now you Google new Washington Consensus, what appears on your screen is industrial policy. So the way United States started pursuing industrial policy, by the way, before Trump, Mr. Biden administration, in 2022 had three new acts: the CHIPS Act, Inflation Reduction Act, and Infrastructure Act, which put on the table $1.2 trillion to be handed over to industry in the form of tax breaks and incentives and subsidies. So this was happening already before Trump came in. So that is why Washington Consensus is a bipartisan consensus between both Republicans and Democrats to push their industry and create jobs. So this is the consensus there, and a developing country with $2,400 per capita, India, should not pursue manufacturing. This is our great economists are talking about. So this is hello. And now the Trump, of course, taking this protectionism to new levels that we will discuss. EU is following the same playbook. Whatever US does, they do it within 3-4 months. I mean, so far they were doing like that. Trump, I think they are getting now a little bit fixated and confused and all. And so a lot of strategic interventions which were abundant and sanctioned under WTO, like the domestic content requirements and all that, they have been used now. Why? The US is using them fully. Then there are other constraints in national context. Also come this net zero commitments that we have taken, and that also put some carbon constraint on our industrialization. The new AI revolution is changing future of work. So certain activities which were labor intensive are now being substituted. So there are a lot of new issues which did not exist in 1990s when China began to speed up its manufacturing sort of journey. Sorry, I think. I have to go back. Yeah. So this we have covered. Yes. So, but I mean, those are challenges created by the external environment turning less benign. But we can also look at our own advantages and opportunities and how we can turn the challenges into opportunities. So first is, I think India is one of the very few countries with this kind of large market, which is growing rapidly. Look at the world growth rates everywhere. The supply chain restructuring, this protectionism is also leading to some kind of supply chain restructuring in the sense that, the different Western countries are trying to find alternate locations of manufacturing to reduce their dependence on China. And in that process, either they do onshoring, bring back to their own country, or to friendshoring. So go to countries which are friendly to us. And that could be in a sweet spot for India, that we have good relations with investor countries, both in the East and the West. And demographic sweet spot. If you look at the world map, Japan is aged society. Korea is the aged society. China is aging very fast. That population is actually shrinking. Europe is an aged society. And so where is the future manpower for manufacturing going to come from? It's India, sitting on a very youthful population, which will remain youthful for next 2 decades at least. Youthful meaning working age proportion will continue to rise for next 2 decades. So this is another sweet spot for India. And the opportunity to leapfrog to more sustainable industrialization. So the countries which have industrialized before us now have this problem to turn it green, but we are in the process of creating new capacities. So it is possible for us to leapfrog to a new, more sustainable, more green pattern of industrialization. So that is an advantage. Now, AI and this IR 4.0, the new technology revolution, a lot of countries are struggling to get into that. But now, for India, our ICT software and chip design capability, which already we created some, can be an advantage for us. So, what are the key opportunities for India? And I have put just 4 slides, 4 types of opportunities. One is making for India. And so, simple calculation, a lot of things which were produced in India were outsourced in the past 10, 15 years because the manufacturing costs in our neighboring country were lower, and our manufacturers thought we have the brand and we get it produced in China and put our brand and sell it. So that's how a lot of our manufacturing capacity was hollowed out. Some of these, now we talk about the drug industry being dependent on imported active ingredients, but they were all made here. So, we should not forget Hindustan Antibiotics, IDPL, they were created to make penicillin some 50 years ago. And now we are 100% dependent on, imports of these active ingredients. Some small, consumer goods like toasters. Can you imagine that toasters we import, manufactured? We should always turn the box of any manufacturing product, and shirts, and calculators. These are import. So first opportunity for India is to bring back the manufacturing or production that we lost to China. We were doing it, all low technology assembling stuff. And so we made a small calculation back of the envelope. Total imports of merchandise of India are $750 billion in last year and previous year. Of that, 50% are commodities, which we have to import: oil, gold, and few others, minerals, and so 50% take it out. We can't substitute that. That leaves $350, $370 billion of manufactured goods, of which, if we try to substitute only half, say $150, $170 billion, that is very easily possible, very easily done. No technology constraint and no material constraint. We can all produce it in India. And it contains actually a lot of labor-intensive goods, like these non-leather shoes. We import 20% of our consumption from China. Can you believe? They are very cheap shoes, $3 each. And defense industrialization, Dr. Gupta already raised a major challenge or a major opportunity waiting for indigenization. And we have started doing that in last couple of years. We have seen how much can be done and how much can be even exported. So PLI scheme was actually created to localize some of this production, which was exported, outsourced to China, and it has shown results. And one example is toys, where we were net importers of toys till 3 years ago. Now we are net exporters. So turning from net importers to net exporters in a very low tech industry, which is highly labor intensive, this is the kind of thing we need to do. And that itself will give us $150 billion of manufacturing value added and perhaps $200 billion of output. So, but we need to guard against the dumping because now that China is being shunned from the US, I mean, obviously they can't export at 145% tariffs, which are being slapped on China. If they can't export to US, where will they go to? India. So and this is not, India is not alone. Southeast Asian countries. I lived for 12 years in Thailand, Bangkok, working for UNESCAP. I know how close China is with Thailand, and our other Southeast Asian countries. Today, now that when the Thai government saw that 2,500 factories closed down in 1 year because of cheap dumping from China, they have started to take action. So if Thailand of all countries can do this, we have to look at that. The second opportunity for India is making for the world exports. Now, the very highly export-oriented kind of industrialization strategy that was adopted by Southeast Asian countries and China is not now very much possible because of this, what is happening in the world trade and investments, the protectionism, and the huge underutilized capacities sitting in the East Asian countries, especially in China. But this supply chain restructuring that the West wants to reduce dependence on China is an opportunity for us. So we have this earlier I talked about geopolitical sweet spot of friends in the East and West, demographic sweet spot, low production costs, and infrastructure gaps being closed very quickly. So we have a chance. And and besides that, consolidating our competitiveness in conventional areas like labor-intensive industries, textiles and clothing, leather goods, gems and jewelry, food processing. These are actually some of the industries we have covered in a successor study which we are completing for the Niti Aayog, very quickly. And we find a lot of opportunity waiting to be tapped in these industries. We have somehow neglected them despite the fact that they were our conventional strengths, areas of conventional strength. The skill-intensive industries like generics and all, we can consolidate our presence and get into some of the resource-based industries like ferrous and non-ferrous metals. So again, this is a very big opportunity altogether, the restructuring and consolidating our place in the conventional areas. The third and fourth are sunrise sectors. So first, electronics and semiconductors, which is talked a lot these days, especially because of the success of Apple and Samsung in making India as an export hub for mobile phones. And mobile phones is a very, very big growth industry. Every single person carries a mobile phone. So this, demand is as many people as there are in the world. So this is a heavily growing kind of industry. And we seem to be making a mark. Value addition is an issue, but it is going up, especially with this component PLI, which is coming up. So, and the fourth is the new green industries. And, we have this ambitious clean energy transition target under net zero goals. And for that, the solar and, green hydrogen, wind turbines, all of these, and electric mobility, they are very important areas for manufacturing. and they help us to grow our industry as well as to achieve net zero. And some of these are evolving technologies like batteries, whether lithium ion or sodium ion or solid state and a lot of this. There is a possibility of making a mark and taking global leadership if we push big R&D projects or create some kind of missions. So that is a very big opportunity. So our you know, some computations that we did showed that there was a lot of potential of doubling India's manufacturing value added from $634 billion in 2023 to kind of more than or nearly $1.5 trillion by 2030. So this is an very big potential waiting to be tapped. Now, some is little very quickly some briefing on what else is covered in this. So one is that we have found that over time, in spite of all of these hollowing out and other issues, we have managed to build a diversified manufacturing base, and today India is the fifth largest, manufacturing hub in the world. Of course, China is a very, very big player. Then United States, Japan, Germany, and India. Then trade and GVC participation is, devoted some space, and again, we have got a very diversified export structure. But the imports have always grown faster than exports. Then trade deficit has widened, but services surplus, the surplus that we are earning in the services sector is helping it to be moderated and keeping the current account deficit in check. The important thing which we discovered while doing this chapter is that we have an FTA strategy which focused on countries where we import from rather than countries where we export to. So countries like Japan, Korea, ASEAN, Australia are all sources of our imports. We have huge trade deficits, rising trade deficit, and we have given them market access, more market access, through preferential trade agreements. But our major markets, United States, US, UK, EU, we have somehow kept these negotiations on a slow track. And so we have that situation that we are struggling to expand our export, and imports are growing. Now, China imports. China, by the way, also gets some preferences under APTA, Asia Pacific Trade Agreement under UNSCAP, where I worked earlier. And not to be blamed because it was way before I joined UNSCAP. So I think we need to bring this balance between FTAs to the exporting countries and FTAs to the importing countries. And the other thing we point out is this appreciation of exchange rate of rupee in real terms is also a source of problem that is affecting our competitiveness in external markets. Then the harnessing FDI for manufacturing and exports. And we all know that our ease of doing business index improved, so we should see ourselves as a more friendly country for FDI. But I think, and the other thing which is coming out of research is that multinational company subsidiaries in India have been doing better than their parents or subsidiaries in other countries. So India is serving them well. And so Harvard Business Review article said that any MNC which doesn't have an India strategy is doomed. So you have to talk about India if you want to grow. So, but yet I think there is, in terms of attracting FDI, we can do much more than what we are doing. And so for that, we are saying that proactive targeting could be a major way. You remember 45 years ago when India wanted to build a small car and nobody was coming here. We floated this tender, you know, that we want to set up a car plant with 1 million capacity, and any company which wants to apply, do that, and these will be the conditions. We will provide land, we will take 50% shareholding and all that, and we got Suzuki, and the rest is the history. So today we have an integrated manufacturing capacity in automobile production, which is now attracting all the top players, because we produce component base and all that. We have the very well developed component base and all that, and which are actually, just today's newspaper said 5 million cars we exported. Can you believe, in last year? So this is the type of thing we need to do, and many countries have used this. China very, very vigorously, that we will give you access to our market, you help us produce at this level and export. So they negotiated with company by company, and this is what we need to do. So when I say proactive FDI targeting, identify the multinational companies that can fill our capacity gaps and talk to them, And there are many examples I can give maybe in the discussion. And we did a lot of quantitative analysis which showed that inward FDI and outward FDI by Indian companies can both help in enhancing export competitiveness. The R&D, Dr. Gupta already devoted a lot of attention to that. This is most critical for our manufacturing success if we want to do that. And so, we were discussing earlier when you mentioned this. Of course, India's R&D to GDP ratio at less than 1% and 0.7% is very low. And even if the measurement errors like adding GCCs and informal R&D is added, which we try to do, it goes up to 1.25. But still, it is so low. In 1990, India and China both had 0.6% of their GDP devoted to R&D. Today, China is 2.6%. We are staying where we were. So the total R&D expenditure of one company, Samsung, is $18 billion per year, which is more than our whole entire national R&D effort. So, this is not really conducive for sustaining a competitiveness in manufacturing sector. So we need to do something about that. And we have, of course, some initiatives taken in the last few years. This Anusandhan National Research Foundation with $50,000 crores budget and 100,000 crore corpus for loans to 0% loans to in-house R&D. They are all fine, but I think R&D, subsidies and incentives, tax incentives, which Dr. Gupta referred to, are very critical. You see the United States technology leadership, how it is done. DARPA agency, it's a defense agency which hands out, money to companies to do R&D projects. And when they succeed, they give some payback in some form of royalty or whatever. And, many of these big projects or big technologies have come out of that, kind of mechanism. So, including internet, including this Tesla car, these were supported by DARPA. So we need to not shy away from direct funding to industry for R&D. MSMEs are the backbone of Indian economy because they sustain so many people and jobs, but they remain weak players. And I think liberalization, the way it was done, that Indian market was opened up to everyone, but a small scale reservation continued. So local players could not enter the areas where bigger players from outside were allowed to. And for this continued for 15 years, 1991 to 2005, when these MSME reservations were withdrawn. And so liberalization has actually affected MSMEs more than the other players. And we need to find a mechanism to tie up these MSMEs with larger sector so they grow, and there is a symbiotic relationship. One of the examples that we are giving in this report is that a lot of these consumer goods imports are happening through retail chains, the organized retail chains. So you go to lifestyle store or whichever store you go, and they are flooded, full of these imported goodies made in China. So imposing a performance requirements on these organized players, there are a handful of them, I mean 10, 12 in the country, that you import, for each dollar of import, you have to export an MSME product from India of the same amount. So dividend balancing and then hooking up MSMEs with these value chains, their value chains. That could be an outcome. And this is, a lot of people think that these kind of restrictions are against, in contravention of TRIMS agreement. I have checked up, this is not a problem. So we can do that. And then potential of green industrialization has already been covered. So in the interest of time, I will not devote more time. And then identifying, this is the last chapter of the report, identifying what and where, what to produce or focus on and where. So the priority sectors in labor intensive, skill intensive, green industries, new strategic and sunrise industries, and then some analysis based on this product space map, the Harvard University methodology. We have identified some kind of diversification possibilities for states. Finally, so what is the way forward to achieve all of this potential that manufacturing has for India? So what we have said is that there was a major industrial policy resolution in 1957, which you remember, the commanding heights. Then in 1991, there was another major industrial policy resolution, which was shifting the gears in the direction of reforms, liberalization, and all that. But both of these resolutions have become outdated for the current context, and we need a new industrial strategy for inclusive, sustainable, and competitive manufacturing sector. This could broadly define some guiding targets. For instance, doubling India's share in global MVA and exports, not within the country. Within the country is dependent upon how fast your services sector is growing vis-a-vis manufacturing. So we may be having a situation that we are doing very well in manufacturing, but its share is stuck because services are doing even better. So that could be. What we need to target is what is our share in the global manufacturing, global exports, and that could be done there. We have 3.1% as we had in one of the slides. So it should be at least 6%, in next 5 years, 6 years or something. So some kind of a target setting which guides us. Then broad principles such as primacy of localization of jobs and value addition, technology, entrepreneurship. We will not, it should be put on the table that we will not prefer a foreign source when our national source or domestic source is available. How on earth we can do that? And no country in the world does that. So that is very important. And the sectors, it could list the sectors where we will take global leadership based on our, factor endowments, our natural resources, whatever, strengths or competitive strengths we have. Then investment promotion principles that we will adopt. What kind of facilities or incentives we will give to these companies which will deliver and leverage FDI, MNCs, MSMEs. So then there should be a clear policy for national champions. Every country that has succeeded in manufacturing has done so by promoting their national champions. Japan, Korea, now China, So we need to identify the champions who can take this, leadership forward, and we support them, assist them in doing that. Innovative activity, the framework for fostering innovative activity and skill development, we have talked about it. Fostering opportunities for green industrialization and sustainable corporate practices. And then supporting Indian manufacturing through multilateral, regional, and bilateral trade negotiation. That has become even more critical in this Trump tariffs, So we need to support our industry in countries where we may be pushed out by the dumping, in UK, EU, now that Chinese cannot export to US, they might focus on the dumping in UK, EU, and squeeze us out. So we need to quickly cement our position through FTAs with them. And then efficient industrial infrastructure cannot be overemphasized. Importance of competitive exchange rate, again, cannot be overemphasized. And then new institutional architecture for financing of manufacturing sector, the term lending. We had, you remember, 3 institutions, IDBI, IFCI, and ICICI, for term lending. But as a part of reforms, they were converted into the universal banks. Now, again, there is an emphasis on creating national development banks. And 3 years ago, government created one for infrastructure, now VIF-ISID. And we are making a case for another one for, financing of industrial investment, for simple reason that commercial banks borrow on short term. The fixed deposits of 1 or 2 years or 3 years that you and me all take, and lending for 7 to 10 years, term lending. There is the asset liability mismatch, and so they are not created for term lending, and they don't understand industrial, lending, and that is why a lot of these non-NPAs, that snowballing of that happened, because what IDBI or IFCI used to do, that there is a phase of a company in its life, in its evolution, that it is short of cash. So convert debt into equity in those times when you can't service a debt. And when it begins to generate huge cash surpluses, convert the equity into loans, and then, and you also reap the rewards of valuations which would have gone up by then. So that flexibility these commercial banks do not have. So we need to create a national bank for industrial development. And then, most importantly, we need a high-powered institutional architecture to strategize, to enable a strategic perspective and for coordinated implementation in a whole of the government approach. Industrial development is not something which is done by DPIIT. All different ministries are involved, RBI is involved, and the civil society is involved. So we need a coordinating mechanism which is of a very high-powered nature, which is not, which has the convening power to bring all of these players at one place. And then periodic reviews and updating every 5 years. It's a very dynamic world, very fast-moving world. So we need some, updation regularly. So that's where I will stop. And thank you very much. And I'm sure our three very distinguished panelists will give us some very interesting feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Nagesh for a very comprehensive presentation, but I think you've covered some excellent points. It's almost like given a good strategy for is industrial development. Now let me request Dr. Sujit Balaji for his remarks.
Yeah. Thank you very much to VIF for inviting me, and to Nagesh for a very comprehensive and A to Z discussion of the strategies needed. I'll take a very somewhat different attack on the problem, which is his looks at the past and says, what can we do in the future? And that's the outline, and that's the strategy. And as I said, it's very comprehensive. I want to look at the past and ask, why not? As you know, as all of us know, we've seen this movie many times before. All of us have seen and participated in discussions about this movie, about India becoming a manufacturing, forget superpower, just a manufacturing, normal manufacturing country. We have lots of resources, we have lots of people, etc. So I don't want, I don't think the aim has ever been for us to become a superpower or even a power, just normal. So we need to identify what has prevented us from being normal. And that's the attack, or that's the attack that I will take, or strategy that I will take. Now, and we don't have to go that far back to 1991. There was an outline, major reforms were undertaken. So I want to just go back to 2010. And all of our memories would at least go back to 2010, when China decided to move up the value-added scale. And then there was a discussion that here, China is moving up the value-added scale, and we can't go high-tech value-added in manufacturing without going to the first stage. And we all thought and discussed, and you all here, as to this was a fantastic opportunity. So Vietnam thought the same, Bangladesh thought the same, and acted. We did not act. So let us try and see, honey kya hai? Why is it that we get opportunities every time? We have the best and the brightest economists, we have the best and the brightest strategists, we have an IAS that is super and who makes policies. So what happened? So I have looked at this, you have, and in private conversations, most of us come up with what has happened. And in public conversations, it's sort of not polite to talk about it. So some months back, I decided, I did this study on trade, high-level advisory group back in 2018-19. And at that time it was, we should have devalued and we would be there. And the report then stated that, look, we had devalued, we had a competitive exchange rate, and we'd gone nowhere. So that was the conclusion of a government report. done for the Department of Commerce. So what has happened? So here's my um, outline of why not. And one other clue as to why not is provided by how it has happened. And look at software in India has succeeded beyond all of our calculations, and services, goods. Basically, the trade is goods and services. Okay, and our services exports are doing better than our goods exports. So what happened? Well, one clue to that is that the services exports or services are not government regulated. Certainly not to the same degree, anywhere approaching that degree. There is economic freedom in services, whereas we are depressed. So if you look at in terms of taking action, whether it is MSMEs or whatever, and we have some clue as to why we have performed badly and why we might be expected to perform better in the future from the budget in February 1st, and which outlined two pieces. They said they'll set up two committees, and one on deregulation. There was a whole economic survey talking about deregulation. And the last I heard about the deregulation, it'll be regulated by the strategy will be by the same people who provided you with the regulations. It's asking somebody, a criminal, to decide on judgment. I mean, I don't understand. Okay, here's an opportunity. They said so. The second is on FDI. Okay, and I think that's not that. Mind you, everyone has heard this before. I've presented this, whatever I'm presenting here, in front of the PM in the Niti Aayog meetings for the last year and a half. And two meetings were explicitly said this. So I'll repeat it. So look, and I've written it in articles, and I really want to be enlightened. Why not? So you have, on bits, let me just tell you, if you don't already know, or inform you, tell is too strong a word, let me just inform you as to, you had mentioned as to how FDI, outward FDI, inward FDI, dono cheeze mein, why aren't we there? What's the problem? So FDI was around in 2015, was around 2.5% of GDP. So you had on investment, so it'll be 3 times that, 7.5, 10% of investments was FDI. And at least until a couple of years ago, the data was showing that we were at exactly that level. And so the economic survey and our economists and our policymakers, all this, problem koi nahi hai. A problem ye hai कि FDI is between two companies, a foreign company and a domestic company, by definition. And foreign and domestic companies around the world have been, expand on the word regulated, but have been organized. Vietnam, Bangladesh, US, England, you name it, that there is an agreement between governments which tries to facilitate as much as possible that you should go ahead and They can please come here, they come here, we'll provide some inputs, the government will provide some public goods or whatever it is, facilitate the enterprise of the foreign and of the domestic firm. A little bit on FDI. I was a student back in economics in 1970. And, at that time, the conventional wisdom was, correct conventional wisdom, that there were two factors, two important, you want to identify, you want to grow. Remember, at that time, there weren't developing countries that were growing. Even China wasn't growing. And so people, economists had looked at it. The two factors that are, the two policies that are most important. One is infrastructure. The second is FDI. And some people confuse the importance of FDI with the amount of money that comes in in FDI. And that has nothing to do with the success and the need for FDI. We have our remittances. So, remember at that time there was, what was it, two gap problem, this, that, whatever. So bottom line, it's not money what FDI does. It is technology, opening up markets, value-added chains on whatever else jargon we use, basically in order to make. So in 2015, while several reforms were being thought about by the government and enacted by the BJP, they came out with a model FDI policy. And the model FDI policy was that, and they chucked a experience of 120 countries with FDI, etc. Neji, sanu pata hai. They came out with the following. Okay, sab kuch, everything is fine, hunky-dory, but what happens when the two firms want to divorce? Happens all the time. Okay? So then the rule was, and still is, in almost every country I know, that the two countries involved, which is India and the foreign country, that basically we'll go to a third country judge in order to decide our fate. Much like McKinsey. Why does McKinsey succeed? Or has succeeded? McKinsey succeeded because the family members are fighting. They can't reach a resolution. So you go to McKinsey. And McKinsey, so both family members decide, Tika, we will go along. And that is the real basis for the huge success of McKinsey. Boston Consulting, all those came much later. Okay. So that is it. So we decided in 2015 that when there's a dispute between the two parties, you will have to go to an Indian judge. I just want to plead. Bhai, do you know any Indian who wants to go to an Indian judge to solve his or her problems? Let's be honest, yeah. And this is, I've been saying this much before the recent episode of a Supreme Court judge and all the rest of it. And here we are telling the foreigners, listen, guys, go to an Indian judge. That is why FDI began to collapse. Why didn't we notice it? We didn't notice it because the old agreement has to lapse. Okay? So all these agreements are often 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So when they started, so they couldn't do anything between 2015 and 2020, 2021, 22, because the agreements hadn't lapsed. Then they lapsed. And in 2023, our FDI was equal to 0.8% of GDP. Last observed in India in 1998. कहां से कहां पहुंच गए, sir? So I think let us just, it's not very difficult. The knowledge is there. Reports are there. We need to act. So I will conclude with, here's an opportunity. We are going to have investment and trade treaties with UK and with EU and a trade treaty with the US. So now let us see. Okay, here's a chance again like 2010. So let us see, who are the people opposed to it? Let me just be honest. The people opposed to reform are those people who will lose from reform. This is an oldest fact. Who are the ones who will lose from reforms? Are the major industrial groups. They will bring in all kinds of things. हमें self-sufficient चाहिए, ये चाहिए. अरे सारी दुनिया को self-sufficient चाहिए यार. So how do things happen elsewhere and don't happen here? So we've got a chance, and I will conclude. We will know between 3 to 6 months whether you and I are going to have the same discussion. And, we'll grow comfortably at 6% for various reasons. So the politicians and the industry are in what I call a comfort zone. Don't rock the boat. We'll get elected and our profits will be maintained. So why do we risk anything? You will come in, give reports, I'll come in, give reports. It's on deaf ears. Until Trump has come in and shaken the boat. This is giving us reason. I'm not saying we should do anything that Trump wants. We should do what is in our interest, which is what has been outlined, etc. And I'm just hoping we do that. We'll know in 6 months, max. उसके बाद आप decide कर लेना, फिर से ये आके हम फिर से वही कहानी करेंगे, या maybe we'll see a different India. I think I'm betting on a different India. I'll conclude there.
Thank you. Thank you, Sudhir ji. Today you didn't mention, but last time when we spoke, you mentioned about the deep state. The deep state, I think you were hinting at, which is not interested in reforms. When he talked about deep state, I thought he's talking about the kind of people who are in deep states. But his deep state is different from the deep state that I thought in mind, which is the economic deep state. That's what you are.
He anticipated the judges. What he's doing on ground right now.
So thank you. I think we're running a bit late, but let me now request Shrimati Rupa Datta, former Principal Economic Advisor, DPIIT, make her remarks. Just a minute, if you can kindly.
Yeah, sir, I'll try to keep it brief. Firstly, good afternoon, everyone. Many thanks for allowing me this opportunity of speaking on the India Industrial Development Report, which is a very comprehensive report. And I think most of us have gone through it. I would like to start by saying that on manufacturing, this report relates a lot to, relates a lot to manufacturing. Our manufacturing has been hovering around 14 to 15% of GDP. When the VIF-ISID Bharat vision was made and presentations prepared, we were looking at by 2030, this should be 25% of GDP, which is what Nagesh ji said, 1.45 trillion, and which would generate a huge number of jobs. Along with it, we are also looking at exports of merchandise exports of $1 trillion for goods and $1 trillion for services. So exports and manufacturing go hand in hand. Exports are the front end and manufacturing is the back end. So unless we develop both, we will not be able to either achieve this 25% share or go in for $1 trillion exports. Exports will be a different story. Sir, I would like to mention a few points on the manufacturing scenario. And while we know that China, South Korea, Vietnam, all these countries have developed their industrial policies, US is doing it, and so on and so forth. What are the issues? Maybe a little bit from a bureaucrat's point of view. We have done a lot of work on these issues, and a lot of work is still happening. What are the issues which we need to focus on? I would like to start by saying that what we read about in our undergrad classes, land, labor, capital, enterprise. These are the four factors for any kind of industrial development or manufacturing to happen. And sorry, before that, I would like to say that we need to, for improving the share of manufacturing and exports, we need to improve the competitiveness, our competitiveness. So we need to focus on these factors of production, look at logistics issues, look at issues like electricity, and also look at reduction of compliances and improve ease of doing business. Now, before I come to logistics, I would like to mention what are the steps, I mean, not necessarily steps, what is it that is required to be done, which we worked out a bit also in DPIIT for focusing on these factors of production. For land, what we need is contiguous, unencumbered, total parcels of land which have clear land ownership rights and which would need the connectivity of infrastructure, roads, electricity, water, if required, railways, etc. Now, for this, and most industries, maybe some industries are doing better in maybe in the southern states, which have better industrial policy or land development policies, which is why more industrial development is happening there. Most of the industries, especially, suffer from this problem. So some of the areas which we can look at for the land is looking at maybe a pan-India integration of industrial land banks. We have a program in DPIIT, the India Industrial Land Bank, and along with a GIS land bank based integration where we have the plot level data and availability. Second step should be total digitization of all land rights, for which there are programs like Swamitra and other issues happening. So clear titles and easy transferability of land rights along with digitization of land records would be a critical issue here. Some of the other issues, because there are a lot of points I would quickly run through, where land can be considered, is land pooling. States may be encouraged to make state-specific policies to acquire sizable areas of non-inhabited land and carve out investment zones. Maybe look at alternative models of land allotment and acquisition, such as land amortization, easy lease model, easy buy model, and also this I think is very critical, that they develop a compendium of best practices for all these factors of production. Today also in the newspapers it came out that Niti Aayog is looking at creating Niti Aayog or PMO is looking at creating a compendium of best practices for the states. So land, labor, capital, enterprise, I think each state-wise we can look at the best practice and see how they can be replicated in other states. Coming to labor, the 4 labor codes which were inaugurated with so much of fanfare a few years back have still not been adopted by all the states. This needs to be given a priority attention. Again, today there was an article saying that many of the states have understood that there is need for labor reforms, increasing hours of working, retrenchment policies, etc. So they are taking steps on their own. But a nationwide implementation of the 4 labor codes would be a critical step in ensuring a supply of labor for enterprises. Third would be capital. So we all know that access to capital and finance, whether it is for MSMEs or even for our overall industries, has been a critical issue. Nageshji already mentioned the requirement for a specialized development financing institution. We used to have the IDBIs and IFCI and ICICI. All of them have converted into banks. We have the NAPFID, but this is an important area which needs to be revived. Besides this, some of the other areas we can look at is to broaden and deepen the capital markets. For exporters, financing remains an issue. Allow them to look at pre and post shipment financing, access to finance and credit. Some efforts being done in places like GIFT City. Much more needs to be widespread. encourage microfinance institutions to form cooperative groups and finance micro enterprises, look at finance, equipment finance and leasing at priority sector, and deepen not only the finance market, but also the financial institutions. Enterprise, with so many taxes and so much of, I mean, some of it, I think, Sir was already talking about, enterprise has also never been given a very positive hearing or a positive perspective in the Indian industrial context. Whether it is encouraging FDI or whether it's allowing arbitration with a third party, these also form part of how we encourage our enterprise, which is not only the startups and MSMEs, but also the large enterprises. How we, I mean, instead now the taxation, corporate taxation rates have, have reduced and are more reasonable or in compared to world standards. But frankly speaking, even within government, we know how much of interactions and how much of presentations had to be made, even for a reduction in the angel tax, because startups are part of DPIT. So, so a much more positive and proactive approach towards promoting enterprise. Another area I would like to mention is strengthen the cluster model for industrial development. And this is especially true for the labor-intensive sectors like textiles, gems and jewelry, leather, footwear, etc. In gems and jewelry, I mean, I can myself give an example. When we were there, I was there in commerce, we had worked together to create some common facility centers, and they were doing what they used to do is they used to get the high-end machines which the small exporters could not afford, and the local diamond government paid the initial amount, and the rest of it was taken care by the local diamond associations, and it was a self-sustaining model with user charges. After COVID, there were a lot of problems, so most of these could not sustain, but there was a potential, and these are some of the areas we can look at. For cluster development also, there is the industrial park rating system. So digital mapping of industrial clusters, looking at the Dholera GIFT city model, these 8 smart cities and this final 32 industrial corridors, where we are promoting smart cities as clusters, can also be some of the areas, along with providing a right kind of platform in terms of special purpose vehicles, can be some of the areas which can help in promoting manufacturing and industrial development. I would like to say that a lot of it has been covered in the report, but I'm just highlighting a few issues which we felt would be important in this context. Another area, sir, where China, I think, still provides a lot of subsidized electricity. So we need to rationalize the cost of electricity. The average electricity tariff in India is higher than international benchmarks. And this is largely because of the cross subsidy, as we know, in favor of households and agriculture. So maybe first thing, we feel that state government should be pursued to fix electricity tariffs for industrial areas for a 3 to 5 year period. What we need is and this is true for all policies and definitely for electricity, we need a policy consistency and and a predictability. And we cannot change our policies every year. Electricity providing minimize subsidy leakages by transferring subsidies to the needy and marginal farmers, but ensure that electricity is provided at least reasonable rates, if not subsidized rates, to the industries in a sustained and a consistent manner. So maybe we can devise a scheme to extend subsidized electricity to industrial units, look at solar energy panels, think of trying to cover electricity within GST, and some such measures to ensure that industries is ensured of electricity supply. Another point would be what already has been mentioned, and which hopefully the Deregulation Commission does work on, is the ease of doing business. Yes, our rankings have improved from 134 to I think 62. We are now looking at BRAP and BREADY, and those indicators are showing positive results. Our logistics performance index has improved from 44 to 38. There's a lot of work being done in DPIT for logistics. Here, before I go to policy consistency, we have the national logistics policy being implemented. We try to calculate the logistics cost, which was initially mentioned as 13%. Some secondary data analysis has shown it is now coming to about 10 to 11%. Also, other areas of logistics performance, reduction of turnaround time for ships and all, several steps being taken. PM Gati Shakti portal, steps being taken to reduce logistics costs. This again can play a critical role for the industrial development in the country. Then we and already and this all this forms part of the policy consistency and regulatory predictability. What I would like to say is while changes in policy and regulations may be necessary, but there needs to be sufficient transparency, clarity, and prior notice to be given. And this again, we look at a 3 to 5 year period. We cannot change these every year because industry finds it very difficult and very uncertain, which is why I think we have, when we speak to industrialists or exporters, we have become a nation of traders more than industrialists or manufacturers. And Nageshji, while you spoke about consumer goods, even things like umbrellas, I think 90% is imported. I mean, toys, we used to see. So, I mean, we have become a nation of traders, and we have speak to exporters. They also, none of them are very interested to, other than the very few large exporters. So, I mean, that they don't need any help from government. But the small ones, they're happy with what they're doing. So, this whole scale concept. But anyway, that would be a second thing. The another point is what Sir and everybody else has said is how do we drive innovation, R&D, and design? Can we promote ease of innovation in India? Can India become established as a test bed for emerging technologies by increasing ease of innovation? So, largely investment in R&D in our country, which is about 0.8 or 1.25%, is largely government finance. Can we make better utilization of public R&D facilities? And can we, this I think is important, can we enhance the outcome measurement of public funded R&D institutes? The researchers at universities and public funded institutions should be made more, their activity, they should be made more accountable, more outcome oriented, and maybe allowed some kind of retain ownership of patents, which can help them in being more interested in the process. We can also look at SME driven innovation, focus on emerging and future technologies, innovation with university and academia collaboration, which I think is a very critical area in the developed countries of the world. In fact, our R&D can become like a hub and spoke model where with the university, academia, industry, and government play a kind of triangular role where we develop a national R&D vision. Another area which again needs a lot of focus is education and skills of the workforce. We are workers, and this I can definitely say for sectors like gems and jewelry and probably for leather and textiles, need to move up the value chain. And not only in exports, we need to produce higher end products, but also the skills, we have the skill development councils, but these activities need to be much more widespread and training of trainers, move up the skill set, get more international exposure, get more domestic exposure, be rewarded for improvement of skills, especially with the emergence of AI, would again be more of twinning programs, apprentice programs, which government is promoting right now, would be the flavor of the day. A key area also would be focus on standards and quality. Our standards and quality, we just have one BIS, which is a single agency for standards development. But a large country with multiple sectors needs more than one organization to enable broad-based development. So probably, and unless we have the right kind of quality, I think we know, and I would again speak from the exporter's viewpoint, a lot of our products face SPSS and TBT-related measures. Our quality comes under scrutiny, and especially for agricultural products and perishable products. So look at how to, and the standards would be true for products as well as services, and how to ensure quality and focus more on standards. And this would, of course, result in participation in international standard setting. A lot of countries are held. Proactive branding and quality assistance, looking at GI products, increase the number of GI products, and training, inspection, and certification infrastructure. Export competitiveness, I would, I'll just say one thing. We all know that would require a different session because I've worked closely with commerce. We need to move up the value chain. Like for engineering products, we are basically exporting basic iron and steel products. Basic iron and steel. We need to look into more iron and steel products. gems and jewelry, we are exporting cut and polished diamonds. We should look more into lab grown, more of gold jewelry, studded jewelry. Agriculture, again, basic agricultural products, rice and all, more into processed agricultural products. Same is true for textiles. Look at the newer products, the technical textiles and all. And lastly, a couple of more issues. One is, of course, the MSMEs and the startups. All startups can be considered as MSMEs, but not all MSMEs are startups. MSMEs, startups, we would again, issues of funding, incubators, removal of taxes, easing regulatory framework. MSME, a lot of studies have been done. I mean, I think Nageshji, this point we have discussed, we seem to have a large head in the industrial development scenario and a huge tail. We don't have a body in between. We don't have those medium-sized enterprises. I mean, people say that even a country like Bangladesh has textile firms, more than 1,000 workers, at least 40 or 50. Probably in India, we'll have not more than 8 or 10. I mean, that is the difference. So we need to get those medium scale enterprises and the MSMEs, of course, their access to finance, their supply chain financing, their creds platform, lot of steps being taken by a government, lot of portals being created. But how much of has the ordinary MSME exporter access them? How much can they, how much do they know how to utilize these? Would always be areas. MSME financing would have its own issues, and also MSME's marketing, branding, use of all these government, not only the Amazons and all, but even use of all these government platforms, the ONDCs, the ENAMs, the GEM. They need to onboard on these platforms. They need to promote their marketing, and they need to look at bigger markets for which maybe they need hand holding. Maybe again, the report has mentioned a lot of issues. Maybe they need hand holding. Maybe they need some champion big industries to again create a kind of hub and spoke model and bring these MSMEs up. If we look at international, look at the developed countries, almost we did some studies. Almost all of them have their best practices. High time we look at these MSMEs and see how they flourish in their current area and how they move up the value chain. I'll just end by saying that there was also talk of public procurement for Make in India, for which we already have about, I think, 25% from MSME enterprises, but this needs to be implemented. Focus more on Make in India. We have the PLI schemes, we have Atmanirbhar Bharat, make them more efficient, more reliable, and more effective. Also, look at the backward. And so, one thing, there was a lot of talk of defense. There's a lot of defense exports happening. I understand there would be a defense export promotion council also coming up soon. But defense would also involve a lot of offset policy. How much of this offset when we do these defense purchases? There were talks of offset policy, but that probably needs to be so that transfer of technology, implementation of the offset policy, because we are doing big defense purchases, would also help us in the transfer, help us our industrial enterprises to become more globally competitive. Along with it, of course, issues of sustainability, circular economy. We all know how to, there are renewable energy, a lot of steps being taken, not much more needs to be taken. I would just end by saying that the states, as Nageshji has also shown, wherever there is higher industrial development, the per capita income tends to be higher. So maybe more focus on the more backward states, maybe focus on Eastern India, Northeast. There's a lot of potential. During G20 and all, we did a lot of touring Northeast, lot of potential, which needs to be tapped, and these states need to be brought up. Probably, I would say at par, but more in line with what other developed states are doing, so that we can look at a coherent, inclusive, and relevant industrial policy or strategy. Maybe it is time for this, ending with what Nageshji's last slide was. After 1991, we did not have an industrial policy or strategy. Work has been done repeatedly, but somehow could not fructify. Maybe it is high time, and keeping in mind Trump's re-industrialization calibration. Basically, whatever he's doing is to bring the industries back to the US. Whether it happens or not is a different issue. But that is what is his focus. So maybe it's time for India also to look at a more inclusive strategy which empowers our industries, improves our exports, and helps in increasing the share of manufacturing. Thank you.
So thank you. I think a lot of suggestions, not too many for me to summarize them, but I think it still brings us back to what Kahani to wahi hai. Why is it that we have not been able to do it? I think that's probably where we need to focus on. So I turn to Professor Ashwini Mahajan. I think he will give the answer because he's now he has a CIEU. क्या है इसका पूरा नाम? So that's the right place I think we have to go to. CIEU, Swadeshi Jagran Manch. Chairman. Ashwini ji.
Thank you, Dr. Arvind Gupta ji. First of all, I would like to congratulate Professor Nagesh Kumar for bringing out this report at the right time and the right report with the right suggestions. Respected Sujit Bhalla ji, Rupa Gupta ji, and friends, brothers and sisters. बात आई कि देश में 1991 के बाद कोई इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी नहीं आई. उसका कारण यही था कि we were emphasizing the importance of globalization, and that would solve all the problems. There is no need for industrial policy to be there. You get whatever you can get from the rest of the world at the cheapest price. The consumers will get benefited, and so on and so forth. And technology will come, as Sujit Bhallaji was saying, that FDI brings technology. So, but all that didn't happen. Very विनम्रता के साथ ये कह रहा हूँ कि वो कुछ हो ना सका. और 1990-91 में हमारी जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का हिस्सा था, मैं उस दिन देख रहा था 19.6%, और 2023-24 में वो 14.27% है. यानी हमने सभी प्रयास कर लिए, सभी प्रकार के रिफॉर्म्स कर दिए. अभी भी कुछ रिफॉर्म्स की इच्छा है, लेकिन रिफॉर्म्स हमने सभी कर लिए. अभी रूपा दीदी ने कहा कि भी जो 4 हमने लेबर कोड बनाए थे वो भी इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हुए. मैं नहीं कहूँगा कि अच्छा हुआ या नहीं हुआ, लेकिन विचार करने की जरूरत है कि हमें क्या वो लैंड और लेबर रिफॉर्म्स चाहिए. क्या हमारे पास लैंड की कोई कमी है जिसके लिए रिफॉर्म्स चाहिए? हमने मैप किया था पूरे देश भर के लैंड रिकॉर्ड्स को कि कितने कितने लैंड बैंक्स लोगों ने इसलिए रख रखे हैं क्योंकि उसको ज्यादा कीमत पर वो बाद में बेच सकेंगे. कंपनियां बंद हो गई, फैक्ट्रियां बंद हो गई, कुछ काम करते नहीं, लेकिन लैंड बरकरार है. हमने जुलाई में जब बजट आया था तो निर्मला जी को कहा कि ये क्या है, आपको इतनी वैकेंट लैंड पड़ी हुई है और हमारे गरीब लोग, उनको लैंड नहीं मिल रही है घर बनाने के लिए. हमारी इंडस्ट्री इज हंग्री ऑफ लैंड. उनको वो इंडस्ट्री शुरू करना चाहते हैं. सरकार प्लग एंड प्ले मॉडल पर इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन करना चाहती है, लैंड नहीं मिलती. तो व्हाई डोंट यू इम्पोज वेकेंट लैंड टैक्स. वहीं से वो निकला. जो आप लैंड रिकॉर्ड्स अभी डिजिटाइज किए जा रहे हैं, वहीं से निकला. उस बजट में सरकार ने उसको मेंशन किया. तो हमारा ये कहना है कि आज एक अच्छा अवसर आ गया कि परिस्थितियां भी अनुकूल सी दिखाई दे रही हैं, और आज जब हम मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पॉलिसी या इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी की बात करें तो कोई ऑब्जेक्ट नहीं कर रहा. इससे पूर्व इन 30 सालों में मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पॉलिसी के बारे में बात करना या इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी के बारे में बात करना एक अपराध सा माना जाता कि आपने बात कैसे कर दी. और देखिए, ये बात सही है कि वी मिस्ड इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन 1, वी मिस्ड इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन 2, वी मिस्ड इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन 3 फॉर डिफरेंट रीजंस. कभी हम गुलाम थे इसलिए मिस किया, और कभी हम आजाद हो गए और गलत नीति पे चल गए. जो इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसीज हमने अडॉप्ट तो करी, लेकिन क्या वो सही थी क्या? हमें विचार करना होगा कि क्या हम सब कुछ पब्लिक सेक्टर के हाथ में छोड़ करके क्या ठीक किया क्या? हमारे आज हमने युवाओं को मौका दिया तो वो 1.5 लाख उन्होंने स्टार्टअप्स बना दिए। सारे स्टार्टअप्स उस प्रकार के नहीं होंगे, अभी पीयूष गोयल ने कहा, लेकिन लेकिन काफी ऐसे स्टार्टअप्स हैं जिन्होंने नए इनोवेशंस के साथ, नए आइडियाज के साथ इस देश को आगे बढ़ाने का लिए प्रयास शुरू किया है। तो हमने इतने बड़े क्षेत्र को, प्राइवेट सेक्टर को, जिसके आधार पर पूरी दुनिया में विकास हो रहा था, लेकिन हमने रोक दिया। वी ब्लॉक्ड इट बाय वे ऑफ इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी। लेकिन आज जिस प्रकार का हमारे सामने अवसर आ रहा है, मैं समझता हूं कि हमें इस विषय में आज के संदर्भ में आपने अत्यंत विद्वतापूर्ण रिपोर्ट निकाली है, लेकिन आज के संदर्भ में उससे हम कुछ बिंदु लेते हुए हमें एक शॉर्ट एनालिसिस करनी पड़ेगी, इसको फ्रॉम द बिगिनिंग, ऐसा कि भी सारी क्लीन स्लेट करके कुछ क्या लिखा है सब मिटाकर आज के संदर्भ में हम क्या कर सकते हैं देश के लिए वर्तमान परिस्थितियों में। स्लेट क्लीन करने का मतलब ये है कि भी पुरानी बातें हम भूल जाएं कि गलतियां कहाँ हुई, क्या हुई, लेकिन आज के संदर्भ में हम क्या कर सकते हैं इन द बेस्ट ऑफ द वेज अंडर दी सर्कमस्टांसेस। तो हम जान रहे हैं कि देश में स्ट्रेंथ की कोई कमी नहीं है। हमारी जो मैन पावर है नंबर के हिसाब से तो चलिए वो तो है ही, उसके बारे में क्या बात कर रहे हैं। स्किल्स और एजुकेशन में भी हम कहीं कम नहीं, और स्किल करना कोई बहुत बड़ा बात भी नहीं, बहुत बड़ा काम भी नहीं, हम कर नहीं सकते। हमारी इंडस्ट्रीज, आपने एनालिसिस में बताया कि 1100 इंडस्ट्रीज जो हैं दे आर एक्सपोर्ट कॉम्पिटिटिव। The problem is that जो हमारी कॉम्पिटिटिव इंडस्ट्रीज हैं, हम कई बार इन डेप्थ किसी इंडिविजुअल इंडस्ट्री के बारे में भी बात करते हैं। मैं एक विस्कोस स्टेपल फाइबर के बारे में हमने देखना शुरू किया। हमने एंटी डंपिंग ड्यूटी लगाई थी। एंटी डंपिंग ड्यूटी लगाना कोई बहुत अच्छी बात नहीं होती, कॉम्पिटिटिव होना चाहिए, लेकिन हमने देखा कि इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कॉस्ट, सेसेस एंड इंपोर्ट कॉस्ट वो 8.5% की डिसएडवांटेज देती थी, और हमने 5% की एंटी डंपिंग ड्यूटी लगाई थी तो भी हमारी इंडस्ट्री कॉम्पिटिटिव हो गई थी। दैट मीन्स वी वर 3.5% मोर कॉम्पिटिटिव देन द बेस्ट ऑफ द चाइनीज कंपनी एस्टैब्लिश्ड इन इंडोनेशिया। तो आपने बहुत अच्छा बिंदु उठाया कि जो हमारी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कॉस्ट है उसको ठीक करने के लिए हम क्या कर सकते हैं, वो मूल में आता है, क्योंकि अगर 2-3-4% का भी फर्क पड़ गया तो हमारी इंडस्ट्री नहीं चल सकती है। तो स्ट्रेंथ में हमारी इंडस्ट्रीज कॉम्पिटिटिव हैं, सुटेबल मैन पावर हमारे पास है, और हम स्किल कर सकते हैं। अभी 500 कंपनियों के लिए जो स्कीम आई थी इंटर्नशिप की, 500 को 5000 क्यों नहीं किया जा सकता, 5 लाख क्यों नहीं किया जा सकता। मैं कई बार हमारे जो मित्र इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट हैं उनको हम निवेदन करते रहते हैं कि आपको 5 लोगों को एम्प्लॉय करना है, आप 10-20 लोगों को इंटर्न रख लीजिए साथ में और उनको सिखाइए, क्योंकि जिस प्रकार से एट्रिशन रेट है वो 5 भी भाग लेंगे, सीखेंगे, चले जाएंगे, और फिर आपकी इंडस्ट्री काम नहीं कर पाएगी। तो इट इज इन योर इंटरेस्ट दैट यू एम्प्लॉय मोर इंटर्न्स। तो हमारी जो मैन पावर है और बड़ी हमारी डोमेस्टिक मार्केट है, किसी के पास इतनी बड़ी मार्केट नहीं है, और ग्रोइंग मार्केट है। Our per capita income, GDP, everything is rising and it can rise further. और सबसे बड़ी बात है कि आज हमारे देश की जो अंतरराष्ट्रीय संबंध हैं उनमें बहुत बड़ा अंतर आया है. We have never been a friend to US, but now US is claiming to be our friend.
Which is
We were doubtful, yes. And Europe, they were so very fast. आपको हम अपनी टेक्नोलॉजी कैसे दे सकते हैं? Now they are saying that you become a part of our global value chain in defense, out of all. हमारे पास सर्विस सेक्टर हमारा जो ग्रोथ हुई है उसमें से एक और सिल्वर लाइन दिखाई देती है कि आज हमारे मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में 15 to 20% हिस्सा जो है वो सर्विसेज का है. मैन्युफैक्चरिंग डिजाइन हैं, बाकी सब चीजें. हमारे जो युवा हैं वो कैपेबल हैं डिजाइन्स के लिए, और दुनिया भर में जितने चिप्स बनते हैं, जितने सेमीकंडक्टर्स बनते हैं, उनके डिजाइन हमारे यहाँ से बन के जाते हैं. तो our youth is capable of doing so, which we somehow missed before 91 and even after 91 because of our overemphasis on so-called FDI. सर, FDI के बारे में हमने अभी एक रिसर्च किया, अभी वो पब्लिकेशन के लिए भेजा है. हमने देखा कि R&D का और FDI का क्या संबंध है. तो देखा कि जीरो संबंध है, बल्कि नेगेटिव है. यानी FDI आने से R&D नहीं बढ़ती है, क्योंकि उनको R&D बढ़ाने की जरूरत क्या है. जब से हमने अपने देश के युवाओं पर विश्वास करना शुरू किया है, तब से आप ये देखिए 2014-15 में सिर्फ 2,500 पेटेंट रजिस्टर हुए थे. 2023-24 में 1,04,000 रजिस्टर हुए हैं. अभी तो हमने R&D पे खर्च ही करना शुरू नहीं किया, केवल विश्वास ही करना शुरू किया है. तो हमने 40 कितने गुना ज्यादा हुए, लगभग 40 गुना ज्यादा मात्र 10 सालों में. तो वी नीड टू believe, we need to increase the belief in our people. yes, हमारी वीकनेसेस हैं. R&D की वीकनेस के बारे में हमने बात की, काफी डिटेल में बात की. हमारे दुनिया के ग्लोबल वैल्यू चेन में हिस्सा अभी बहुत कम है, और लोग अभी कॉन्फिडेंट भी नहीं हो पा रहे हैं. इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कॉस्ट के बारे में आपने कहा, वो भी हमारी बहुत बड़ी वीकनेस है. आसानी नहीं, बहुत आसानी से हम इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कॉस्ट को कम कर सकते हैं ऐसा है नहीं, संभव करना पड़ेगा, लेकिन अपॉर्चुनिटीज भी बहुत है. हम लो बेस से शुरू कर रहे हैं. हमारे पास हम ऐसा नहीं है कि हम पहली बार मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करेंगे. हजारों सालों तक हम मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करते रहे. वही लोग हैं, वही दिमाग है, वही जमीन है, वही बुद्धि है. बस केवल परिस्थितियां बेहतर करने की जरूरत है. अपॉर्चुनिटीज के नाते बात करें तो दुनिया बदल रही है, चेंजिंग वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर. अमेरिका, यूरोप, सभी लोग, और जो आज टैरिफ वॉर शुरू हुई है, पहले लोगों ने कहा अरे टैरिफ वॉर शुरू हुई, अमेरिका ने इतने टैरिफ लगा दिए. We were the very first ones to have said that this is an opportunity which is going to come to India, and now everybody is saying that. Somebody tweeted that the Trump tariff is going to benefit this company. तो हमने उस कंपनी से बात की, वास्तव में सच है क्या? उन्होंने कहा यस. दूसरों से बात की. There are a lot of opportunities available now. The space vacated by China can easily be filled up by us. Today, the Vice President US is here. So they are going to impress upon India that we have given you this much of opportunity, what you can give to us. So then ये उनकी मजबूरी है कि उन्होंने हमें अपॉर्चुनिटी दी है. हमें उनको कुछ देने की मजबूरी तो ऐसा नहीं लगता है। थ्रेट्स के नाते बात करें तो प्रोटेक्शनिज्म बढ़ रहा है और उसका असर हमारे पर कितना पड़ेगा वो देखने की बात है, लेकिन आगे का रास्ता क्या हो वो बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है। फ्रेंड्स, हमें स्ट्रैटेजिक इंडस्ट्रीज की तरफ आगे बढ़ना पड़ेगा। न्यू सनराइज इंडस्ट्रीज जिसका जिक्र प्रोफेसर नागेश कुमार जी ने किया, सोलर है, सेमीकंडक्टर है, लेकिन इसमें ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा कि लेबर इंटेंसिव इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन, क्योंकि हम आगे बढ़ते रहे और हमारी लेबर को हम एम्प्लॉय नहीं कर पाए। यस, एआई इज a big threat. At the same time, it is big opportunity as well. We have to take advantage of AI. We have to take it. मैंने जब कहा इंडस्ट्री 4.0, हमने 3 इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशंस की बस मिस की है, लेकिन इंडस्ट्री 4.0 के हम मध्य में खड़े हैं। चाहे वो स्पेस हो, चाहे वो एआई हो, चाहे वो ड्रोन्स हो, चाहे डिजिटाइजेशन हो, सब चीजों में हम सबसे बीच में खड़े हैं। मैं नहीं कह रहा हूं सबसे आगे खड़े हैं, लेकिन दुनिया के जो इसको हम ग्लोबल साउथ है, वो ग्लोबल साउथ और मिडिल इनकम कंट्रीज ऑल दे आर लुकिंग टुवर्ड्स अस। स्पेशल एनवॉय ऑफ श्रीलंकन president, they talk to us. How can you help us in digitization of Sri Lanka? वो भी चाहते हैं कि भारत जैसा आधार का सिस्टम उनके यहाँ हो, वो भी चाहते हैं कि डिजिटल पेमेंट सिस्टम वहाँ हो, वो भी चाहते हैं कि डिजिटल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वहाँ खड़ा हो, वो चाहते हैं कि भारत के जो इन्वेस्टर्स हैं वो वहाँ के स्टार्टअप्स को फाइनेंस करें। हमारे लिए बहुत बड़ी मार्केट है और श्रीलंका एक उदाहरण है। ऐसे बहुत से लोग क्यू में खड़े हैं जिनको हम मदद कर सकते हैं, लेकिन उसके लिए जरूरी है कि हम अपना वातावरण यहाँ निर्माण करें। डेवलपमेंट बैंक्स की बात आई, बहुत जरूरी है। हम बहुत समय से ये कह रहे हैं कि बैंक्स के नॉट serve that purpose of industrialization. We have to bring back those development banks in whatever ways. And सबसे लास्ट में ये जो ट्रेड डील्स हैं, वो कहते हैं कि हमने सारे जो जंग हैं देश ने, वो हमने जंग के मैदान में जीते हैं, लेकिन टेबल पर हम हमेशा हारते रहे हैं। तो टेबल पर हम उसको जीत में बदल करके दिखाएं। ट्रेड डील्स को उस प्रकार से हम, चाहे वो मल्टीलैटरल इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, मुझे लगता है मल्टीलैटरलिज्म का तो समय अब खत्म हो गया है। अब हम बायलैटरल डील्स में जो कुछ करें तो हम टेबल पर कम से कम ना हारें, बाकी हम मैदान पे तो हमारे लोग जिता ही देंगे। धन्यवाद।
So thank you अश्विनी जी, बड़ा एक पॉजिटिव आपने वो दिया है, एंड आई थिंक द रिपोर्ट भी एक पॉजिटिव कंक्लूजन लाती है, और सभी ने कहा कि वी आर रियली देयर, बट अभी हो नहीं रहा, अब कर लीजिए कुछ। So I'll open this now for discussion and maybe some brief points if somebody wants to make, because we are quite late otherwise.
Very inspiring presentation and discussions that ensued. We don't have to actually agree or disagree with the previous speakers, or because time is very short, otherwise we can make it more intense. Just 4 points. One is what the director VIF had highlighted in the beginning, at the start. And I think everything else is subsidiary. That is innovation. Because nobody throws seeds of charity. So long-standing experience, take it or leave it. Nobody will give technology, nobody will give new additional finances. So there is a need, necessity, desirability to rise to occasion. The second point, which I thought, because everything else is flowing very smoothly, what I saw was greening the industry. So two things we must remember. and remember it very well. नागेश जी कोई ऐसी अर्थ शेकिंग बात नहीं है बस. One is that India's total GHG emissions, which may be responsible for climate change, are less than 4% of the world. ये 4% के इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर के कितने एमिशन हैं? ओनली 8%. अगर ये 4% 100 होते तो ये आंकड़ा समझने की जरूरत है ना? तो वी आर नॉट द पार्ट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम. तो जहां पे वेयर वी हैव नॉट इवन कार्बोनाइज, वी आर आस्क्ड टू डीकार्बोनाइज. ये बात को ध्यान रखना है. अगर ये भूल गए तो हर एक जगह हम वो डीकार्बोनाइजेशन लगा के आधी चीजें सोलर पे चढ़ा के और फेल हो जाएंगे अपनी इंडस्ट्री. तो ये एक मेरे को लगा के जरूरी था. दूसरा, मेक इन इंडिया, आत्मनिर्भर भारत, स्किल डेवलपमेंट, मैं बहुत कोशिश करी हमारे अवर रिस्पेक्टेड प्राइम मिनिस्टर एंड दी अदर पैराफर, पर ये somehow these are not taking up. तो इसको थोड़ा सा मजबूत करना है. जब हम इंडस्ट्री की बात कर रहे हो तो ये चीज को हम क्यों ना पुख्ता कर पाए, जबकि सारी फैसिलिटी है, पैसे है, सब कुछ है ना. और ये जो इनोवेशन की मैंने बात करी और R&D की है ना, तो इसमें we have to go by the route which 90 countries are following without announcing, and that is civil military fusion. Now it will have several dimensions. For a security person it will have another dimension for others. पर हम एक बारी अपना दरवाजा तो खोले DRDO के लिए, स्पेस के लिए, अपने IITs, यंगस्टर्स, सबको, है ना. ये एक बड़ा इसमें लाभदायक चीज. लैंड पार्सल्स की जहां बात है, which is my penultimate point, I am with the Supreme Court's committee which sees all this, Central Empowered Committee. So it is not that easy as we just say land parcel. Huh? तो इसको हमें go and no go zones, zonation, where we have failed miserably, चाहे वो छोटी सिटी का जोनेशन हो चाहे कहीं का भी हो, जोनेशन की हमें समझ लानी पड़ेगी. आता है पर पता नहीं क्यों नहीं करते. और दूसरी बात के कभी भी अपने आप को, if we lump ourselves with China and then start discussion, I think this habit we should shun. We are what we are. So with these 3-4 points.
Thank you so much. I think it was absolutely a very learning experience. My point only is that being a soldier, I always say armed forces alone can't make a country strong. Actually, that's a harsh reality which people should understand. All the jingoism can't take us up. Comprehensive national power demands that we have economy, and economy to a state where I have seen China as a miserable country, absolutely, down in dumps coming up. I wish same thing happens to India. One point I like to say, जो हमारे उद्योगपति हैं, entrepreneurs, they should develop more risk. Actually, it's the most disgraceful thing that they always demand profit as if it is their, right and entitlement. They haven't invested into the innovations, which is absolutely awful. And it pains me, actually, if you ask me, that there is so much of a reservoir for them to be able to dip into, and they always continue to dodge it. So if they also want to contribute towards the country's, rise, then they must take risks. Why is it that our companies like Infosys and all haven't developed to the extent where the Microsoft has? I mean, all those people come and give you lectures. Why did they not develop? Because they succumb to getting profits. So that is what is disgraceful, absolutely. So mere khayal say, if the country has to come up, it has to be a joint effort, and industrialists, entrepreneurs, innovators, economists all have to come together to push it up. Otherwise, we'll be reduced to mere slogans
and will not come up, which will be absolutely pitiable.
Thank you. Shashank Chaturvedi, online.
Yes, sir. Just have a few comments that is related to the R&D part that more than one speaker mentioned. One thing I'd like to highlight is R&D expenditure is certainly an issue, but there are some procedural issues which need to be solved. Those are actually the main things holding us back. Number one, we have to accept that R&D investment, wherever it is a risk. It may or may not yield results. Now, currently what we have is a performance audit of all government labs, which is done in the same way that they would do it for a factory or for a government office. But if you look at DARPA projects, for example, you'll see many of them fail. Many of them don't give results. So we should be encouraging high reward, high risk R&D instead of simply saying you should achieve your targets. There should not be a penalty for not meeting something, number one. Now, there are templates that are available from the US and UK for competitive development of technologies by multiple industries. They sometimes have in really futuristic areas. They have more than one industry given a contract. They compete for it. We could adapt from that for the Indian context. The third is whatever R&D gets done in government labs, it's not a good idea. It's not fair to say that the scientists are not interested in finishing the job or in delivering. In many cases, the R&D has been completed and innovation is complete, even patents filed. The trouble is in transferring it to industry. There's always the threat of vigilance matters hanging over you if you start talking to an industry. So, because in many things you are not allowed to involve industries right from the beginning. The Atal incubation centers are an excellent idea. It's a wonderful idea, and they're working very well. But the procedures have again been made very complex. So there's a need to look at the procedures on compliance and so on. They're treated like companies. So there's so much work. Instead of focusing on transferring technology to startups, you actually end up complying with Ministry of Cooperative Affairs website and so on, with CAG and so on. The last part, a lot of the time and effort in R&D goes into procurement. Indian government procurement rules are so complicated. There's such a jungle of rules. So just waiting for a purchase order to get released takes you most of the project duration. Now, many of the procurements in R&D involve fabrication of equipment. It's not something you can buy off the shelf. Now, this cannot simply be done through a procedure which is appropriate for buying, say, office equipment, for buying a Xerox machine or a PC. So the procurement procedures for R&D institutions have to be made more flexible. Thank you.
I think Chaturvedi should know because he was heading a very major lab of the Department of Atomic Energy. And this has been a problem. The procedures, and the R&D ko samajh hi nahi aata. They treat it as if you are buying a table or a chair. So this is a very important point. Yeah. Ji, Rajesh ji.
Thank you, all the speakers. I think some excellent points were made. I just wanted to focus on security and manufacturing, because that is where this thing. So just to talk about in this Russia-Ukraine war, about 20,000 shells are being fired on a daily basis on both sides. So if you are looking at industrial capacity, this is the kind of industrial capacity that you have. But believe you me, in peacetime, you cannot manufacture 20,000 shells a day. You won't have any place to stock them. They are being made because they are being fired actually. Similarly, drones. Today, 1 lakh new drones per month appear on the war scene. 90,000 of them get shot down. They do not do any damage whatsoever. It is only the 10% which actually do some damage, and that too partial damage in many cases. So the point is, but if you see today, there is a factory in Ukraine which is churning out 4,000 drones a day through 3D printing, 1 drone every 27 seconds. That is the production rate and the consumption rate that is required. So for the industrial capacity of defense, this is the kind of capacity you need to build, but you cannot. So it's a chicken and egg, and this is where the problem happens, because most of the defense people say, industry says, where are my order? You see, how much can I stock? How much can you place in a particular place? You cannot get the kind of orders that you're looking. But yes, new products, you must give some order, because every new product has to go through an iteration process. So the first drone that will come out will not be the perfect drone which is currently being used in Ukraine. It will be a slightly inferior version of that. We need to buy a few of those and then maybe use them, discard them over a period of time, and then buy some more, and so on and so forth. And that is how it will happen. So in terms of capacity and in terms of actual manufacturing, things are different, and therefore much of, see, for example, artillery shells and ammunition has to be export led. There are 130 wars happening in this world today. So unless you go for export led growth for ammunition, you cannot, for in our country, stock so much of ammunition. You'll have to keep destroying them after every 3, 4, 5 years. So it has to be an export led growth. Secondly, in terms of manufacturing of big items, aircraft and ships, I think shipbuilding is an area which needs serious focus, because we have got huge capacities and we've got huge availabilities. It's just a matter of getting orders from outside. I think Brazil has ordered 4 frigates recently. I think that is a fantastic, start. But shipbuilding, we have to get into the complete global shipbuilding industry. We have to integrate into that. Even if we are not making full ships, we can make part ships and float them to Korean shipyards who can, then make bigger ships or whichever way it is. But we need to get into this particular thing. Aircraft manufacturing, again, fighter aircraft manufacturing is a start-stop process. 126 aircraft we'll make some, 200 Tejas, then we'll make some 200 Tejas Mark II and some 200 MK. But after that, what? It'll come to a stop. See, every line after 200 comes to a stop. So it has to be a manufacturing plus MRO business. So it is a cyclical. So it is not only manufacturing plus services. And that is where the whole this thing. Just to answer your point about the offsets were part of the contract. They have not been implemented because there was a defense offsets committee which was looking at. There is no penalty. I mean, the biggest person who is the defaulter is our Dassault Aviation, which gave us Mirage 2000, and then Rafale. They were supposed to undertake these offsets. None of them took place. We cannot penalize them because we are dependent on them to buy more aircraft. So there is a precinct. The only and nobody will give us technology, just to overstate this point. And my final point is that we also have to, one overseen factor is corruption at lower levels. This is seriously inhibiting the startups and the small companies who wish to expand. They are being treated like big companies. A person who's operating on 3% margin or 2% margin, if you ask for a huge bribe from him, he will collapse before he even starts. So I think there is a need to rein in some of these low-level people who are, peons who have got 500 crores assets. They need to be put in jail. That's the only way.
Okay, I think we're running out of time. I'll take one comment. Somebody there on the screen, mandala kind of a symbol you have. Would like to come in? I don't know your name, please. Yeah. Oh, Cordesia. Okay. Cordesia. Not there. Okay, Ruchita, please.
Thank you, Professor Nageshwari, for presenting your report. I think it's really optimistic, and we do hope that some of your suggestions are accepted by the government, and we just live in hope that this happens. Again, Dr. Rupa Datta, you've talked about offsets, and as Air Marshal Rajesh Kumar said, it was in 2005 that the defense acquisition procedure called for offsets as part of any deal. But subsequently in 2020, it was realized that the offsets have not been working. Most of the time, they haven't. These companies have not implemented the deals, and CAG reports over the years suggest that. So in 2020, now in case of single vendor, acquisitions or in terms of G2G acquisitions, offset clause has been removed from the DOP. So if we have to rethink that, then we'll have to rethink what are the incentives that you give these companies, whoever we are procuring the equipment to implement the offset. Otherwise,
Okay, I think. This year? Yeah. Please go ahead.
So they have lowered.
You are muted.
Yeah, sir, I'm Group Captain Shekhar, sir,
Yep.
speaking from CDIC, Kodisha Defense Industrial and Innovation Center.
Yeah.
Sir, been working on the ground with MSMEs. We work around 300, 350 MSMEs with us. The major problem that we are facing is MSMEs do, as already brought out, have small budgets. And most of them do not have a big team. So their focus is get an order, do the job, get the money, and then try to expand. The problem is they never reach an expansion stage. As of now, they are very comfortable with all the compliance, with all the benefits that the government gives them. But their hunger for growth is not coming in because they are not seeing orders. They get all the PLIs and everything they get. They are doing small manufacturing. Though they have the capability, they are unable to, bring out because the loop from innovation to order is so large. It is probably at times, I've been working with the DPSUs and the MSMEs, is around 2 to 3 years. So these guys lose not only the interest, they do not have the pockets deep enough to sustain for that longer time. Same is the case with startups. So some sort of policy change in which a guy who's come up with an innovation either goes into make one where he gets the developmental charges, or if it is in make two, has an assurance of some orders, because MOQs are there, but then MOQ says 100. Now 100 is over a period of 6 years. So his quotation is for that time. That doesn't work for him.
Okay.
What he is looking at as something, probably if he's done an innovation, he's sure to get order for the next 2 years. Something of that sort. Probably we started off on a getting orders on a nomination basis. We had around 63 products, out of which we completed around 20 products. However, it is not moving ahead because now all the DPSU say no, the DPM does not say about nomination. So it will, after doing all the innovation, he spends money, time, everything, and then he says, no, I have to go on to the gem and stand in line. I would probably not get it. That is a big obstacle. So at least since CDIC has been given the status of a defense innovation hub, as some sort of a something like a PLI only, but at least if the identified industry, if the DPSUs identify, okay, that is fair enough, these guys can do it.
Thank you.
Give them an opportunity to develop as well as get orders on those.
Okay, orders.
That's all I've got to say.
Okay. It's a
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, I think we have had good discussion. I request Nagesh Kumarji to just wrap it up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, for hosting this very rich discussion. I really enjoyed every minute of it. I mean, after I finished the discussion part, very, very interesting. And all of, the people, our three eminent panelists and everybody else in the room contributed to it. So we are most grateful. I think the few underlying threads which are coming out of this very rich discussion. One is that everybody agrees in this room that manufacturing is critical. We need to get there, and General Sawhney put it that just by having a strong military, you do not become a strong nation. You need, manufacturing prowess behind it to become a strong nation. So that strategic, dimension of manufacturing, stock manufacturing comes out. We all agree that we have missed a lot of opportunities over these last 75 years for different regions. And Professor Mahajan mentioned about some wrong policy choices at wrong times and all that. Now, there is, we all agree that there is a lifetime kind of opportunity is before us, upon us, to make use of and really make up for the lost time. We can't afford to miss it this time. I think it is whatever destiny, whatever superpower we believe in has given to us another chance, and we should not make or miss this out, and make most of it. And then in that journey, to exploit and tap these opportunities, several things are not to be neglected. One is, of course, the R&D in technology, as Dr. Bhatt said, nobody will give it to you. And Dr. Gupta in the beginning set the stage by emphasizing on R&D. We need to, put money where the mouth is, and the procurement rules, as someone pointed out, for R&D needs to be changed. Government procurement, when it comes to R&D or research, it doesn't understand. I mean, we signed on some studies funded by government agencies, including NITI Aayog. The kind of conditions they put, the penalty clauses, that shows the mindset that they don't understand what research is, and it has to change. If we really want research to be done. So that R&D, then the military-civil complex, military-industrial complex, anywhere else in the world is highly, important for building industrial capacity. We need to exploit that, and in that, number of different things are there. The opportunities are there, as you said, Marshall, about the fighter aircrafts, shipbuilding. We have actually emphasized in the report a lot of opportunity for shipbuilding, and not only shipbuilding, but also here with shipping line. We were shocked to find that 92% of India's trade is shipped by foreign liners, not by Indian liners. Can you believe? I mean, this, and 95% in terms of volume 92%. So such a high dependence on foreign liners, shipping liners, and we are trying to sell whatever little Shipping Corporation of India, which is only company having Indian flag, sell it off and then maybe bring it to 0%, so the 95% dependence to 100% dependence. So this is, I think, shipping industry and shipbuilding both are very critical. We need to invest in big opportunity. These are labor-intensive industries, and we need to exploit them. And so I think most of the points which were made are very helpful. The arbitration point, for FDI is very critical. I mean, you need to create that trust in the minds of foreign investors, that if there is some dispute, there will be a neutral party looking at it. So all of these points which have been made are very, very critical, and I'm very grateful to you, Dr. Gupta, for providing this platform for such a rich discussion. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Nageshji, for giving us this opportunity to talk about these things around your report. And the report is very comprehensive, and we again congratulate you. But जैसे कि सुरजीत जी ने कहा, कहानी वही है.
Yeah.
That is what we have to really, because कहानी वही है, इसलिए 3 इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन मिस किया. और अभी इसमें कई और चीजें जुड़ गई हैं. एक तो यह है कि आपका क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स, कहानी वही है, इसमें भी बताऊं 1990 में और अर्ली 2000 में क्रिटिकल मिनरल की रिपोर्ट आप ही के गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स बना रहे थे. दे वर ड्राइंग अटेंशन कि भाई क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स है, स्ट्रेटेजिक मिनरल्स, इसके लिए कुछ पता करो कि क्या है, कहाँ है. चाइना शुरू हो गया, आपने कुछ नहीं किया. And today, critical minerals is going to be a major constraint for your, semiconductors, etc. What is semiconductors?
Already weaponized.
It's been weaponized. ये आप दूसरी है. R&D और इनोवेशन के बारे में हमने बड़ी बात की, लेकिन उसका एक दूसरा पहलू है वो जो एजुकेशन है, जो कि हल्का सा एक मेंशन आया था. और यूनिवर्सिटीज में R&D कीजिए ना आप. R&D यूनिवर्सिटी में आप डार्पा वगैरह की बात करती हैं, पर सारे डार्पा में जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जाते हैं वो यूनिवर्सिटीज को जाते हैं. तो वो एक पूरा पहलू जो यूनिवर्सिटीज का है और एजुकेशन सिस्टम का है वो भी है. आई थिंक डिफेंस इंडस्ट्रियल कॉम्प्लेक्स में जो मिलिट्री का है उसमें मिशन ओरिएंटेड अप्रोच के बिना काम नहीं चलेगा. बिकॉज मिशन में 8-10 मिशन आप जोड़ लीजिए, उसमें आपके मिलियंस ऑफ जॉब्स विल बी क्रिएटेड फॉर ऑल काइंड्स. यूनिवर्सिटी एजुकेशन उससे लेकर और आपकी मार्केटिंग और डिफेंस एक्सपोर्ट्स वगैरह वो, लेकिन मिशंस और दे स्टेयरिंग राइटिंग ऑन द वॉल इज देयर. अब ड्रोन्स की इन्होंने बात की. ड्रोन्स के जो पहली बारी मैंने सुना था ड्रोन का, जो हमने प्रेजेंटेशन ली थी एनएससीएस में, वो 2005 में ली थी. ये 20 साल पहले. आप सेमीकंडक्टर्स की बात की है. जब मैंने रिसर्च ज्वाइन किया 1974 में टाटा इंस्टीट्यूट में, तब हमने उसमें लार्ज स्केल इंटीग्रेशन व्हिच बिकेम चिप्स तब बात की थी. सेमीकंडक्टर कॉम्प्लेक्स आपने 1980 में बनाया, which was before any fab had been made anywhere. तो ये मिस्ड अपॉर्चुनिटीज वाली बात है ना, वो कहानी वही है कि हम why do we miss opportunities. और वो अब नाउ आई एम बिगिनिंग टू रियलाइज वो डीप स्टेट, वो अगली बारी आप बात करना जरा, ये डीप स्टेट है ना, ये बड़ी गहरी है. So thank you very much. We have had a wonderful discussion. I think there on the third floor we have a small refreshment. Please take some refreshment before you go. Thank you so much. But I think this should not be one-off.
No.
We do want to, particularly on the strategic side, we do want to drill it down to some more specific things. हमने काफी काम किया है, AI के ऊपर किया है, quantum पे किया है, so many other things. In fact, we are going to have a AI discussion very soon. And तो आप उसके साथ जुड़े रहिए, and we would like other people